I'm Mike Febo from Motor Trend, and as you know, the Scion FRS is one of our favorite affordable sports cars.
And I'm Greg Emerson from European Car Magazine, and we'd rather eat our own poo than drive one of these things. We'd rather eat our own poo. We'd rather eat our own poo than drive one of these things. So we've brought a Volkswagen GTI along. It's about the same price, and we think it's a much better car. We also have an E30 M3 here, which is perhaps one of the original fun rear-wheel drive performance cars, just to use as our benchmark in this test. So we're going to take them around the track and see which one we prefer. In the 80s, the BMW M3 represented what was the ultimate rear-wheel drive driver's car.
Fast forward a quarter century and factor in a shrunken economy, our drivers' cars still need to be functional, but also affordable. The FRS and GTI represent the best of what Japan and Germany have to offer while meeting those needs. These cars offer the same performance, but at the same price, and that's with 25 years of inflation.
In order to see how our modern cars would stack up against each other and the M3, we ran time laps around Streets of Willow racetrack.
We started with the Volkswagen GTI. The German Challenger put down a 135.6. The Scion FRS did the same lap in 137.9. Our benchmark BMW M3 put in a very conservative 139.6, with the very generous owner watching the whole time.
So Mike, here we are in the Volkswagen GTI, which I think you'll agree, after having driven it, is the better car.
I'm not convinced it's a better car. It's a more useful car.
Isn't that better?
Yes, it's better around town, and it's better
around this track. It's better around this track, Mike. That's the problem.
It's faster around this track. It doesn't necessarily make it better around the track. It's how much fun you have.
What's the measure of a car on a racetrack if not time?
Enjoyment. We aren't racing for money.
Wow.
We're spending money to be out here.
Could I counter?
Oh, please.
With the suggestion that the FRS, once you switch everything off, so the traction control isn't constantly interrupting, it becomes twitchy. Whereas this, with everything turned off,
is boring.
Really? You're just going to say the GTI is boring?
It's a little frustrating, to be honest, that you can't get it to move around quite like you want it to.
What? You can point it where you want to. The electronic diff on this car does allow you to actually spin the wheels. It doesn't cut the power anymore. So your exit speeds are actually pretty respectable and I didn't want to bring this up, but when we did take the two cars out, you know, this does walk away from the FRS with better power delivery.
In a straight line.
To be fair, this isn't apples for apples. We do have a DSG transmission, but even with the 6-speed manual in this car, I still think the GTI would be the quicker car. It's the better car.
Now, we've timed this before with a pro driver, and he is faster in the FRS.
When we've timed it ourselves, this is the quicker car for all of us. I just feel that, you know, this proves that this is the everyman's performance car. This is the car that every single one of us can get in, go quickly in, and have fun.
But is that the measure of what the best car is? Which one you're fastest in?
Yes. Ever since the second car was invented, people have been timing them against one another.
So if we had a GTR out here, it would be by far the better car. It would even be better than the M3 because it's clearly faster.
Good point. Well done. Yes, it's a better car. If it's a quicker time, it's a better car. Do we prefer it? That's not the argument I'm making.
Oh, so we aren't picking the car we prefer, we're picking the faster car.
We're picking the better car.
which isn't necessarily the one you prefer.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Why don't we jump in the FRS? You can try and make me sick around this track.
All right, well, we'll see how well it spins.
No one's spun this yet, whereas we have had a couple.
Spin this.
We have had. Oh.
Yes, that's a dare.
I can't believe you said those words.
So we are now in the Scion FRS, or as we like to call it, the Japanese Jesus.
Why?
This is like the second coming of sports cars. Oh look, I'm shifting my own gears. Isn't that amazing?
You can do that in the GTI though, to be fair.
I know.
It's not like
the
Japanese invented the gearbox.
They may have. Do you know that?
Britain invented the gearbox. It's lighter, which instantly makes it feel more nimble. I'll give you that. Which
is good.
With it being rear-wheel drive, you instantly notice the front wheels aren't fighting the way the GTI is.
Yes, this car is doing what you want it to.
So if you want to go slowly around a track and have fun, this is the perfect car.
Or if you're a really good driver and you want to go faster, this is the one.
How would you know? You were faster in the GTI.
Because I've seen the numbers.
Okay, so you heard about it.
I have had good drivers tell me that.
I'm not sure that counts, but I'll go along with you.
Now we're going to go to Sport mode. See, oh, is that a little rotation I feel there? Yeah, you didn't get any of that in the GTI, did you?
No, you do get some rotation. I think to suggest that the GTI is just an understeering pig is a little extreme.
A little unfair. It is.
Exactly. So it's not like you can't rotate the GTI. They do dance around a little bit on their suspension. I actually find them quite entertaining. I'm not saying this is a turd. It's just not as good a car by all measurements.
By all measurements being all the lap time.
Well, lap time, torque. That's enough, isn't it? What else have we got?
That's enough.
It's, as we.
How about that? Can you do that in the GTI?
You know what, you can't.
That was counters here.
With a young kid in this car, that turns into a crash. And don't try that at home, kids, because this is an expert on a closed course. God, you're good. I'm slightly aroused by this.
I own a GTI. I've owned several GTIs. And when it comes to everyday use, it's the car to have.
So the GTI is already a faster lap time, and you're saying it's more practical because it's a better daily car.
Right.
Okay, keep going.
But we're at a racetrack.
We're only on a racetrack in order to conduct this test. We're appraising more than simply their trackability. And, as street cars, yeah, you're very good. The GTI it's just a more capable, better car.
More capable. I'm with you there.
Which is better. Okay, so let's sum up.
Just the highlights.
Lap times are slower. It's not as practical. It has less torque. It's not as usable. It's potentially more dangerous in the hands of a novice. So what's the positive of this car? Despite all the...
Oh, it's fun. How much of a hooligan can you be in a GTI?
In order to get the most out of this car, we need to be on a track where the majority of people will never be with either of these cars. To me, the test of either of these cars is put it on a challenging country lane in the rain. I would much rather be in a GTI.
I'll admit, for everyday driving, at that price point, you just can't touch it. So we're heading back out in the M3. This is our benchmark.
It's pretty obvious. This is by far the better car. It's so neutral in the turns. The slightly bigger engine gives it more torque than the Scion. I mean, again, we're apples to oranges here, aren't we? It's a much more expensive car. Admittedly, it's older, doesn't have the technology, but it actually doesn't seem to need it. As the benchmark, it remains the benchmark.
Yeah, neither of these cars really do the job of this thing.
No, and yet BMW's gone so far away from here. Although I think cars like there's the M135i in Europe, which I think does actually come fairly close, but of course we don't get it. But this is, you know, it's even with 200,000 miles on the clock, it's a spectacular drive.
At the end of the day, we've driven both cars, we've driven the benchmark. The Scion is more fun. Will you admit that?
Than the Golf?
Yes, it just being on a racetrack, being a hooligan, throwing it around. Does it put a bigger smile on your face?
Yes.
I will also admit that at everything else, that GTI is better. Begrudgingly, I will agree that it's the better car.
Thank you. I win. I accept your apology. You're welcome.
Ah, Jesus.
Roll up your windows.
You gotta press hard.
And long.
That's what she said. I'm gonna puke.
Okay, let's go back here. Greg can puke, and I am going to melt. So, Greg,
I think I love you.
oh, I thought that may have been the last thing you ever said. Yeah, it's on camera.